Is Christianity credible? Can a thinking person be a Christian? Well, I believe that one can, and let me give you 3 reasons I believe that. First of all, Christianity has an answer to the age-old philosophical question, which is, why is there something instead of nothing? Philosophers have asked that question down through the centuries. Why is there something? There is a universe, there's a planet, there are plants and animals, and we exist. And why is that? It's not necessary that all of this would exist. In fact, there could be nothing. And why is there something instead of nothing? Well, Christianity has an answer for that. The answer is that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God is the one who made all of these things. And that is a reasonable answer. In fact, it's just as reasonable or more reasonable than saying that there's no reason that it's all here or it just appeared by some random accident. Well, a second reason that Christianity is credible is that every house has a builder. When you drive by a house on the street, you may not know much about that house. You may not know how many rooms are in it or what the colors of the walls are inside or how it's laid out. But there is one thing that you do know. You do know that that house had a builder. Someone imagined it, someone designed it, someone built it. The foundation, the house did not just grow out of a concrete block that started on the ground, that grew itself into a foundation and walls and a roof and so forth. You know that the house had a builder. Well, it would seem that the world needs a builder as well. We live in a world in which there is order and structure and beauty, and where does that come from? And in fact, so much of the world exists there are mathematical equations that explain much of how the world works, and where did those come from? Who worked out the math? Well, the math seems to be a part of the universe from the very beginning moments. Well, when we see a house on the road, one of the things we know is that house had a builder, and it's also reasonable to assume and to believe that this world with its order and structure has a builder as well. A third reason that Christianity is credible is that the story of Jesus in the Gospels is credible. Now, there are 4 Gospels in the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They all tell the story of the life of Jesus. And they are credible accounts of the life of Jesus. One of the things we see in them is they're not all exactly alike. They're a little bit different, which says that these are not stories that are carefully coordinated to try to match one another. You know, if you were making up a set of stories, you would be sure that they aligned exactly and they all said exactly the same thing. That's not what we see in the Gospels. In fact, they have some subtle differences in the way they tell the story, and that lends to their credibility. It makes them more credible. They are not coordinated together, but they are independent accounts of the life of Jesus. One of the things we also see in the Gospels is that they seem to be trying to tell an accurate historical report on the person of Jesus. There are a lot of things that in the Gospels that they could have mentioned. They were written at a time, for example, when the question of circumcision was a big issue. Should a Gentile convert to Christianity, did they have to be circumcised? And there was a big discussion in the years 50, 60, and 70 AD. But there's actually nothing about that in the Gospels. If you were writing the Gospel simply for your own self-interest or not for truly historical purposes, you might be tempted to have Jesus say something about that, but there's nothing about that in the Gospels. The other thing about the Gospels is that the person of Jesus is compelling in the Gospels. When you read the stories of the life of Jesus in the Gospels, you see why the people in the early church, and particularly those who were closest to Jesus, thought that he was unique, that he was not just a great teacher or a prophet or leader, but he was in fact the Son of God. Well, that's what Christianity believes, that God has come among us uniquely in the person of Jesus Christ. God has taken on flesh and blood so that we might know who God is, so that we might have a personal relationship with God. and so that we might be forgiven our sins, so we might have something to do with our guilt and find our guilt relieved through forgiveness from God. That's the great good news of Christianity, that we have someone to forgive us, and we have the opportunity and the chance in Jesus Christ to be made right with God and to be in connection with the living God who has made us and made all things. Well, so you can be a thinking person and be a Christian. Christianity is credible. It makes sense in itself, and it also helps us make sense of the world in which we live. If you've never explored Christianity, a good way to start would be to read one of the Gospels and see what you think about this remarkable person, Jesus. Christianity believes there's no one that's ever lived who's been like him, and in fact, he is the one who has come to save the world and the one in whom we find not only life in ourselves, but in which everything in life finally begins to make sense.